Well, hello guys, it's a Writer Tribe talk show, and today I have back one of my favorite guests. It's Adam Gaffin, and he's going to tell us all the cool things that he has been going on since the last time we spoke, which really wasn't that long ago, and yet you've accomplished quite a bit in that time. How you doing?
I'm good. Yeah. Well, it's always a busy time, with new books coming out and stories going out into the wild, and getting getting out into various anthologies. I mean, it's just when it's good, it's really, really good as a writer.
Yes.
Plus, things are finally opening up again, so I get to go to conventions and go see people face to face and talk to readers and
It's so nice,
that's
isn't
been
it?
exciting.
Like to get back out there again. It's like, even if it's people you've never met, it's still like seeing old friends back again.
It is.
Yeah. It's a totally different feeling than all this virtual stuff that, we've done for the past few years. So yeah, I agree with you. It's such a great experience to be back out there again. And I just slowly started back up again. I have an event coming up and I'm rusty. So you're going to have to give me some tips. Probably I'm going to have to hit you up offline and go, okay, how does this go again? What do we do? I can't remember. They say it's like riding a bike, right?
Yeah, it only hurts when you fall off.
That's it. And I'm used to that. I'm used to that. So it's all good. All right. So now, as if I didn't say this to our audience, you are the multi-published author of many, many books, but the current baby, the current darling is your Cassidy Chronicles and all of the incredible offshoots of that story. And I know we talked about it the last time, and I want you to tell everybody. So tell everybody how many books there actually are, first of all. Let's start there. How many books are there?
Sure. Right now, there are 8 books in the Cassidyverse. There are 5 books in the main series. There is a memoir, Memories of Ayana. It's a memoir written by one of the main characters from the Cassidy Chronicles about her childhood, which takes place about 60 years from now. There is Into the Black, which is the collection of stories, which you can see behind me. And that came out in April. And the latest one that came out in June is a new series in the same universe. It starts with The Ghosts of Tantor.
Very, very cool. So now just to recap this so people really understand the scope of your work ethic here and your creativity. We spoke just shortly before, it could have been just a matter of like a couple of months before Into the Black came out, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it was out yet. I think it was about to be out. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so in that short time, which is what, like say around 4 months, you have two separate entities out, separate books out, which is pretty incredible. So I know that authors that are going to be watching this are going to want to know your secret to being so prolific. Are you willing to share a little bit of your secrets there?
I'm perfectly willing to share the secret. It's just I don't know if it can be replicated by somebody else. You have to be willing to write the stories that the characters and the voices in your head are telling you. If they're saying, "Don't fight the story," if when I was writing Ghosts of Tantor, I had an idea of what direction it was going to go, and I threw in this little. I needed some action. I needed to ratchet up the tension a little bit. So I dropped in them discovering a rogue planet 1,000 light years away out in interstellar space, frozen planet. And that actually turned into a major turning point in the book. I had no idea that was going to happen.
Yeah, you know what? I think that is actually phenomenal advice. And I agree, it is hard to take because if you're very rigid in your ideas of what you think your characters are going to do, I don't care what kind of writer you are, if you're a plotter or a pantser, your characters are going to speak to you and they're going to tell you what direction to go in, and you either go with it and you live happily ever after or you fight it and the whole process is a struggle. So I think that is outstanding advice, to actually basically listen to your characters when they're speaking to you, and don't worry about sounding crazy, because we understand each other. It's okay.
Well, and one of the best bits of advice I've ever gotten is the purpose of a first draft is to exist. You cannot edit words that you haven't written. Once you have something, I'll say on paper, but how many of us actually use paper anymore? Once you have something written down, then you can go back and change it. Then you can move pieces around. Then you can tweak the dialogue and say, oh, well, this doesn't work here, but it does work there. You can fix things after you write it. But if you don't write it, you can't fix it.
Yes. Oh, so true. Yes. I speak to so many aspiring authors who will say things like, oh, I have such a great idea for a story. And I always stop them and go, write it down. Put it down, or write it. Like I agree with you. Who uses pen? I don't, because I have atrocious handwriting, so it always goes on the computer. But yeah, absolutely. Like stop talking about wanting to do it. Stop talking about doing it, and just do it. Actually start doing it. So yeah, outstanding advice. And I hope anybody who watches really takes that to heart, because I think people think we're being snarky or cheeky when we say that, but it's very literal. Like the story can't write itself. I mean, it can when you're the medium, but
Right.
you have to do it. You have to put in the time. So, and that's, you're proof. Now you have a total of, correct me if I'm wrong, you have a close total of like 20 books in all, like outside of the series included. Is that about right? Or am I?
If you include the anthologies that I'm part of,
Okay.
and some other stories, sorry,
That's okay.
some other stories which I've put out there as standalones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about 20.
So we'll call it 20 pieces of work out in the universe. Is that is that about right? Yeah, which is terrific. I mean, that's a prolific author / writer right there, and great goals to aspire to, because it's actually so beneficial to you, because the more work you have out there, the less likely you are to build a fan base. When you have just one book out there, it's kind of hard to build a fan base. So with something like this, that to me as a reader, that's so exciting, that when I pick up a book from somebody and I go, oh, I really loved this book, I hope they have more. And they do. And you're like, oh, and I get them all. Like if I find a book from an author that I enjoy, I will read everything they've ever written. And yeah, and a little obsessive there.
Yeah.
But it's good.
And writing for anthologies is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually, the first one I wrote specifically for an anthology came out last winter, and it was a little fantasy story in a Holiday Hijinks anthology. And it's set with the two main characters from Cassidy Chronicles,
Mm-hmm.
Kendra and Ayana, back when they're teenagers, and they're holding a Christmas party that goes just slightly sideways. So I got to play with fantasy for that one. For a charity anthology called Wicked Wishes, the charity is the World Literacy Foundation, so all the proceeds from it are going to that. I took another story from the Cassidyverse, and it's just straight up science fiction. I actually wrote a 1,500 word flash fiction romance story.
Oh, very cool.
Yep, for another anthology. That one came out at the end of May, and that was fun. I submitted 3, and they turned down 2 of them. One of those that they turned down was the seed that I've used actually to write an entire fantasy novel, which will be a series of novels under a pen name.
Mm.
So, because I write science fiction, nobody would ever believe that I'm writing a fantasy romance.
That's really cool. And I love the genre hopping, and I think that's so fun to do. So the Cassidy Chronicles is primarily like if you were to put in categories, first category would be sci-fi, correct? And then
Absolutely.
you can tell if there's relationships, which there usually are in books, you can put that tag for romance in there because there's romance in it. There's some kind of love story probably, right?
Oh yeah.
So
I,
yeah.
the very first book starts off at a wedding.
Ah,
The
yeah.
first book starts off with a wedding, and the minister tries to kill one of the brides.
Normal, happens all the time.
Absolutely, yes.
So tell me a little bit, and I know that we talked about this before, but for anybody who hasn't seen our last conversation, first of all, if you haven't seen our last conversation, go find it and watch it, people. Come on now. But for this time around, just tell everybody again a little bit about the background, like of Kendra. Kendra is like the original Kendra Cassidy is the start of the whole series. Tell me a little bit about how that whole concept was created.
So the series started, like I said, the first book starts at a wedding, and I had this whole scene come into my head. So I wrote down the scene, and it's just a short little chapter in the book. It's just barely over a page printed.
Mm.
Uh, and that kicked it all off. But then I had these characters, and I was like, okay, so who are they? Why is so I'm trying to discover all of this.
Mhm.
Kendra turned into the major character in the Cassidy Chronicles after she married Ayana because she has a bigger dream. Her dream, Kendra's dream, and she's the one behind me. Um, Kendra's dream is to bring humanity to the stars, get us off of this planet, get us out of this solar system. As Heinlein said, the Earth is far too fragile a basket for humanity to have all of its eggs in. So she's working to drag humanity to the stars, and that brings her into conflict with the Solarian Union, which is comprised of the colonies on Mars, Titan, the moon, and in the asteroid belt, who don't want to share. So basically, they declare war on Kendra. Probably not the best choice.
No, she looks pretty fierce. I personally would not mess with her.
Yeah. Well, I got into, I don't know how much your viewers know about it, but Kindle Vella, the serialized stories up on Amazon. And I've been doing that since they launched it last year. And one of the stories I wrote was called Recruiting Kendra, which tells the tagline for it is, how do you turn an actress into an assassin?
Nice.
And that's her. That was her first dive into, let's say the grayer side of life.
I love it. And I love what you do with these stories that you get so much out of these characters. So it's not just, one book and you're done with the character and it's gone. You get all of this stuff, and including now Into the Black, that you go back to, it's Kendra's teenage years. Is that correct?
So Into the Black is 11 separate stories, and not all of them, I know it's a terrible disappointment to Kendra, but not all of them are about her. They start, the first story starts actually about 10 years prior to now, and the last story takes place about 80 years after the events in the fifth book in the series. So, and it's scattered all over the place. I bring in secondary characters. I introduce new characters. There are that fantasy story I wrote for the Christmas anthology made its way in there because it's just too, it's a fun story. And that is the teenage Kendra and Ayana with this. And the Recruiting Kendra shows up in there. There's a story called The Piece of the Action, which won an honorable mention from the Writers of the Future contest last quarter. So that's very excited. I didn't know I was, it happened after I decided that that was going to be in the collection. But there's even a noir detective story in there.
Wow.
Yeah, that was fun to write. And there's one character in there who, if you read the series, you're going to know who she is, but all the other characters are new, and she just kind of kicks the story off.
That is so cool. I would like to just I want to pull up a chair inside your brain and just watch.
Well, if you can find space in there, I mean, there's an awful lot going on.
That's good because you keep putting out stuff for us to consume as readers. That is just so cool. Now, talk to me a little bit about your absolute newest release, The Ghosts of Tantor. Is that right? Did I say it right? Ooh, that looks good.
Yep. And this, I mean, I could turn off the background, but then you're going to see all the dogs lying unconscious behind me. So this cover, I had 2 covers made. This cover, oh, there we go.
There we go. Perfect.
Was just such a wonderful cover that I couldn't say no to it. And so this cover is only available in the print editions. It'll never be available as an ebook. You can only get it as print with this cover, because I want people to see. I want people to see that face. So the Ghosts of Tantor, the idea is it's about 4 years after the events in the Cassidy Chronicles. The war is long over, and they finally finished building the first of their serious deep space exploration ships. And the TFS Pike is 4 kilometers long, has a crew of 4,000. And the idea is that it just goes and explores. You go out, and we'll see you again in 3 years. Bye-bye.
This reminds me, this gives me a vibe of like Star Trek.
Yeah. Star Trek is a huge influence on me, and therefore influences the book, because Kendra over here, she grew up watching our pop culture. So she absorbed a lot of, the past probably 40 years. So Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers, Babylon 5. I mean, you name it, she's kind of gone, yeah, that's the future. The very idealistic, especially Star Trek. Very idealistic. The everybody has a voice. Everybody works towards a common goal. She buys that, and she's in a position to say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and she works tirelessly to make it happen. So yeah, but unlike Star Trek with the Pike, when they send them out, there are no star bases out there. There's no, there's no Federation of Planets, with all sorts of alien races, that, hey, yeah, sure, drop in. We can help fix your warp drive. The idea is they go, and they don't come back for 3 years. So it's kind of like a Cold War submarine mission where, okay, you go out, you're out for 90 days, you're cut off. So I wanted to have a little bit of a darker story. I mean, it's still hopeful. I mean, this is hope punk. If you want to categorize it,
Sure.
Solar punk, I've also heard it called. Where the future is not dystopian. It's not utopian, but it's not crash and burn. So I wanted to write a book that explored some of the pressures of being cooped up in a tin can with 4,000 people who you may or may not like for 3 years. And I took a bunch of secondary characters from the Cassidy Chronicles and said, okay, this is your time to shine. and it totally turned into the main character has turned it, surprised the heck out of me.
That's what they do. That's what they love to do.
That is exactly, yes.
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be focusing on the commanding officer who, yeah.
Yeah, they said no, sir.
Oh,
That's so fun. I just love that. And one of the first things I thought of as you started explaining this and kind of giving us a little background about this one is you said 4,000 people on this ship, on this spaceship. And I'm thinking, oh my God, he's got 4,000 more characters for us to write books about. This is exciting. No pressure or anything, but I don't think that's pressure for you. I think that's just a invitation or a challenge to you to go, yeah, no, 4,000 more. Yeah, no problem. I got them.
I have lists of people who have said, yeah, you can use my name.
That's awesome. Yes, I will add my list to it. I would love to be a character in your book. I mean, not saying like you have to put me in one of your books, but I mean, you do write some really cool characters. So, if you have room for, a 50-year-old podcaster turned, I don't know. I'd like to do something violent. Could you make my character violent? Like,
I'm currently writing. So again, 4,000 people, and it's a mixed complement. Because they're going out and exploring. They're going to find new planets. When they go down, the scientists, are going to have somebody to escort them.
mhm.
Make sure that whatever native flora and fauna don't come and eat the scientists. So you have Marines on board. You have a company of Marines. You have, like I said, close to 100 dire wolves. That's their fighter, their space fighter, because they don't know what they're going to encounter out there.
Mhm.
They don't know who they're going to encounter, if anybody. And the Pike itself is not armed. I mean, it has one like Death Star type laser on it, but that's it. Other than that, its defense is all the ships that it carries. So it's carrying scientists, it's carrying people to run the ship, it's carrying people who fly the smaller craft, it's carrying Marines. So there's got to be conflict among those characters. And yeah, the main character who's on that cover, changing careers. She was the head of the Luna Free State, and she resigned. She said, I'm done with politics.
Mm-hmm.
And so she joined up because she wants to go into doing science.
I think one of the coolest things about the genre you write in, and your writing specifically, your stories, is the limitlessness of where you can go with these and what you can create, because it's uncharted territory. You can create, all of these universes, because who can argue with you? Who can say that doesn't exist? It may very well. So I think that's really exciting and just so fun as a reader, just so fun to be able to read, to truly escape into these completely other worlds and adventures. And I think that was one of the, greatest things about Star Trek, and it was so exciting to just go to these other lands. And I think the especially cool part about what you do with your books is that there's actually, and I'm not knocking Star Trek because people are going to come for me. I know what happens when you talk out of school, but it wasn't exactly deep, right? The series, the show, you are actually, with your stories, you're getting a real human element, and you're truly getting to know these characters and invest in them, which I think just adds so much to the experience of reading the stories.
If you're not, I like to explore, different conflicts. The third book in the series, Measure of Humanity, is talking about what makes a person human. Because Kendra Kendra gets called out as an enhanced human. She's been
Mm.
genetically engineered. She didn't know. She had no idea. But there were laws on the books which said that she's not human because she's been genetically engineered.
Wow. Whoa.
That, that's, the one of the main focuses of that book. And once she knows that she's genetically engineered, that becomes something that drives her, because she don't want anybody to go through what she went through. She don't want anybody to be looked at as a second-class citizen, which leads to all sorts of interesting consequences. Very blithely in the 5th book, she says, "Oh yeah, our AIs, they're sentient. They have volition. Yeah, they're citizens. They'll be citizens of this Terran Federation that we're starting."
And these are actual real conversations that are surfacing now. So this is really very, very realistic in a lot of ways, that these are real conversations that are happening. And if they're not happening, they will be, like, in a hot minute, because this is what's going on, with AI, of course. Absolutely incredible. I know without a doubt in my mind, you are in the middle of working on another book, right?
Yep.
When can we expect the next installment of the Chelsea? I keep doing Chelsea. I don't know why. I did it to you last time and I just did it again. I'm not even going to cut it out. When are we going to see the next installment of the Cassidy Chronicles?
So I am working on the sequel to The Ghost of Tantor. I'm about 30,000 words into it. I'm aiming for 80,000.
Oh, so by next week you'll be done. Perfect.
If I sat down and concentrated on it, possibly. The only problem is there are always other projects that demand attention, because I have two stories due for an anthology. I have the sequel to that fantasy romance that I'm doing under a pen name.
Oh, so you got stuff going on. Okay. All right. So I'll be fair and I won't pin you down on that, but I will pin you down on coming back again when that will come out. Awesome. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Tell everybody where they can find all of your books and your website, all of that good stuff. How can they find you and follow?
Sure. The easiest way to find me is go to CassidyChronicles.com. If you go to the store page, you can buy all the ebooks. If you want paperbacks or hardcovers or Audible, you have to go to Amazon. But that's easy enough. Just go to my author page and they're all over there. If you want to see me in person, I'm actually getting busier as the year goes on. I'm going to be at CocoCon in Phoenix over Labor Day weekend. I'm going to be at Multiverse Con in Atlanta in the middle of October. And then a week later, I'll be back in Denver at Mile High Con. So, and if you're really local, I go down to the farmer's market.
Awesome.
I'm down at the farmer's market down here in my little town in southern Colorado.
That is so great. All right, guys. So not only can you find his books online, you can find Adam in person and get those books signed. And if you're not a sci-fi reader, guys, you have someone in your family who is, so get them a signed copy of these books. Come on now. Adam, thank you so much for coming on and sharing these new updates with us. It's so exciting.
Thank you for having me back, and I look forward to coming back again in the fall.
Outstanding. Good. We're looking forward to it. All right, guys, this has been the Writer's Tribe Talk Show. We will see you next week. Take care. Hey, family, if you're looking for the perfect gift for the reader in your life, why not check out one of my books? They're all available on Amazon and most major online book retailers, as well as elsakurt.com.